What I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a two-part video. This one's going to be talking about modeling the phases of the moon, and part two will talk about the rising and setting of the moon. And we'll actually write this stuff over here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a pen and like all the colors and everything. So we've got two sets of circles. We have the inside circle. These are the moons viewed from space. And if you notice, the sun's coming in here from the left-hand picture. So the left-hand side of the moon is lit up, and regardless of where it is in this orientation, it looks the same. Now, a couple things we actually have to talk about. The Earth actually rotates, and this is the North Pole, so this is the equator. The Earth rotates in a counterclockwise direction, like that. The moon also revolves around us in a counterclockwise direction, like this. And then when we talk about the 8 phases, we'll talk about this one as being moon 1, and we'll talk about that because the sun's actually coming in from this picture. And remember, the sun is 93 million miles away, 1 astronomical unit. The moon is actually 1.28 light seconds away, about 250,000 miles, about 350,000 kilometers. Much farther away. This is not scale. Scale size, maybe, but scale distance, no way. So let me draw 2 more arrows. So the moon is revolving in a counterclockwise direction. It actually takes from that position right there, and let me actually draw a couple things here. Actually, I'm not going to talk about that at all. For the moon to get around the Earth one complete time, it takes 27 1/3 days from it to go from phase 1 all the way around all the phases back to phase 1. That's 29 1/2 days. And why that is, the Earth is actually revolving around because we're moving this way as we go around that 93 million mile away star. We move that direction, and when the next time the moon is going to be here, we're located off this map, and the new moon is not going to be straight over in this location like it is here. It's going to have to wait an extra day and a half or so until it actually catches up to the same angle as the sun and the Earth. But we'll talk about that later on. Okay, so we've got the moons looking the same on the inside. Phases do not really happen. It all has to do with our apparent view. So phases are not a real thing, it's an apparent thing. Okay, the next thing, what we're going to actually imagine is we're going to imagine us standing on the Earth, and here is me standing on this Earth, looking at that moon. The side that's facing the Earth is completely dark, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little thicker brush here, and I'm going to actually color in this whole moon. Actually, I think I like the PowerPoint highlighter better than this one, but I do have a little bit more say in where the thing actually goes. And then if I go back, let's actually pick different colors. We call this one a new moon. And I'm going to write moon on 2 phases. The rest of them, you just have to understand it is the moon. Okay, about 7 days later, actually about 3 days later, we go this direction and we go to this moon, and just like we saw this half of the moon facing the Earth, when we actually move over here, I hope I remember to change color. When we look at this moon, we see this much of it, and then when we see this moon, this much, that much. That's not a very good line. And that's the one that's actually straight up and down. That should be a piece of cake. And then this one, this half, and that half. So when we actually go over to here, what we're going to see is we're going to see a moon that's not completely dark, not half and half. It's only going to be a little bit lit. And I'm going to draw this one as the top of the moon being right here. I'm going to draw it as being right there. And I'm going to go back to this color. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this off. We have to also look at this different. If we look at this, this is the right side of the moon when I'm looking at it from this Earth. So what I have to do is I have to move this over to the right. and I have to color the big side because it's mostly dark. Color in the big side. And as I was saying in class today, this is, if it were French, we'd call this a crescent. This is a crescent moon. So I'm going to write crescent. Then we move over to moon number 3, and we look at this moon, and now it's half and half. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line that's straight up and down, and we're still, as we stand right here, am I drawing it in 2 different colors? As I'm standing right here, if I spun this around, it's still the right side is getting bright. So what I'm going to do is go over to the left side, and I'm going to color this side in. And this is a moon that's half lit and half dark. So the half that faces the Earth is half lit. We call this one a quota moon. So this is going to be a quarter. And this is actually the first quarter. We'll give it another prefix as soon as we finish up and get to this new moon. Same thing, I'm going to draw from this side up here to that side down here. It is going to be the right side again, but now it's mostly lit up. So I'm going to bend this line this direction. And I'm going to color in. I'm not going to get a bigger marker this time because there's not much to color in. Okay, and this moon is lit up. And actually, Colin looked this up in class today, and we'll talk about acute angles here. If we have 2 acute angles which are less than 180, more than 90, and on both sides, this is how it gets its name, gibbous. And then if we're standing on moon number 5 looking at it, it's completely lit up. I do not want you to leave it blank like we did here. What I'd really like you to do is to actually make a face on this moon. And this is a different face than I showed in class today. We are getting close to Halloween. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a little Halloween ghouly looking creature with pupils, and maybe even give him a little bit of a beard. Okay, and what do we call this moon? This moon is called a full moon. And as I was actually telling the kids, the whole lunar phase kind of a thing is actually named after a goddess named Luna. And apparently Luna was a beautiful goddess. She knew she was beautiful. In fact, she actually thought she was perfect. So what she did is she actually had her slaves build her a monument. So up in the sky, no moon. And then what happens is it gets bigger and bigger as they build the monument to Luna, and gets bigger and bigger, and then it gets completely built like this. And being such a perfectionist that she was, she would actually look at that and say, that doesn't look good enough. I want you to tear it down and start building it again. And so the word lunatic comes from Luna, the god of the moon, goddess of the moon. Okay, and I'm pressing all kinds of buttons here. So this moon completely lit up again, so I'm going to actually do this, except it's going to be the exact opposite of this moon. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I'm going to color in because it's mostly lit, color in the small side, and you're going to notice 2 things. First off, we have our second gibbous moon, and we can't do that in science. And secondly, these moons don't look alike. They're mirror images of each other. So if I get a different color, and if I draw a line right here, all the moons between moon 1, so I'll start before we get to moon 1, moon 2, moon 3, moon 4, all the way up to just about the full moon. These moons are all called waxing. And how are you going to remember this? Well, if you look at this moon, the right side's bright, the right side's bright, the right side's bright, and that one is waxing. If you look at this one, the right side is not bright. These moons over here are all going to be called waning moons. Now, waning, I know, actually means to get smaller. We can talk about the PM, 5 and 6 p.m. of the day is the waning part of the day. We also talk about maybe October, November, December, where we are now, the waning part of the year. You can actually talk about February and March, the waning part of winter, just like you can say August and September may be the waning part of the summer. Waning means to take away. Okay, so if I go up and let's name the last 2 moons, this moon is going to be just how we see it because we're looking up at it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to color in this side. Oh, that's a really big pen. Going to color in this side. And this is the same moon as down here. This is a quarter moon. And this quarter is called the third quarter. Or if this is the first, this is also called the last quarter, but it's also called the waning quarter, just like this one is called the waxing quarter. So waning, we're getting smaller and smaller. Then we move over here from the top to the bottom, and we make it look like that, except now the dark part is the largest part. Draw it in there. And this one is another crescent. Except this is a waning crescent. So the waning crescent, we start with a new moon, we get a waxing crescent, we get a first quarter, we get a waxing gibbous, then we get a full moon, then we get another gibbous, except this one is waning, another quarter, third quarter, or the waning quarter, and then we get another waning crescent, and those are the phases of the moon. To actually do the phase, from moon doing 360 degree revolution, it takes 27 1/3 days. And to go from new moon all the way to the other new moon takes 29.5 days. And this is why, really close to a month, this is why we actually call our months month, named after the moon. And we get about 12 of these, not quite, because this doesn't take in 30 days. It doesn't take in 31, a little more than February, except this past February was 29 days because we had a leap day. But anyway, it's almost a month long, and that's how we get its name. Okay, those are the phases of the moon. So moon phases 1. Thanks.